All right, sixth graders, on to section 7.3. This is going to cover triangles. So here's our key idea. We can use side lengths and angle measures to classify triangles. So for example, if we have an acute triangle, that means that all of the angles are acute. An obtuse triangle means that one of the angles is obtuse. A right triangle means that we have one right angle. And an equiangular triangle means that all three angles are congruent. Now make sure in geometry you use the word congruent, not equal. So when you are showing that lengths of things or measures of things are equal, you would actually say the word congruent. So notice here, we have these little red tick or arc marks. And down here, we have something called tick marks. So what does that mean? Well, arc marks and tick marks are just used to show that things are congruent. So here's your little side note right here. Red arc marks indicate congruent angles. Now, once again, if you have more than one set of congruent angles, you can make two arc marks. Red tick marks here represent congruent sides. So going on to congruent sides. Congruent sides are sides that have equal measures. Their side lengths are the same. A scalene triangle has no congruent sides. Isosceles triangle has at least two congruent sides. Notice at least two. It is not just two congruent sides. It's at least two. And an equilateral triangle means that all sides are congruent. So in example 1, classify each triangle. Well, in example 1, it looks like we have three angles, none of which are congruent. So if none of the angles are congruent, that means none of the sides are congruent. And we see that we have one angle that's obtuse. So that means we have an obtuse scalene triangle. It's obtuse because we have one obtuse angle, and it's scalene because none of the angles are the same, which means none of the sides are the same. In B, we have one pair of congruent sides and one pair of congruent angles, which means it has to be isosceles. And I know I said that wrong. It's isosceles. But I often say isosceles, just because it's fun. So this is isosceles. Now if you look, we have an acute angle here, an acute angle here, and an acute angle here. So we have an acute isosceles triangle. So in example 2, constructing a triangle using angle measures. So I want you to draw a triangle with angle measures of 30, 60, and 90 degrees. And then we're going to classify the triangle. Now, you can actually draw any angle first. Does not matter which kind of angle you want using your protractor. But I'm going to start by drawing a 30-degree angle. So we start by drawing our 30-degree angle. So as you can see here, I have a vertex and we made our 30-degree angle. Next, let's make the 60-degree angle. Or you can make 90. Once again, it does not matter. So we move the protractor to the other side or the other vertex of the angle you just made. So we slid it over. Now over here, we're going to make this 60 degrees. It's an acute angle. And as you can see, we have made a triangle here. Now sometimes you're looking at this going, well, we have this extended marks here. Well, then you could just either take your pencil and erase this, which is fine, or you can actually just label these, for example, A, B, C, and say triangle ABC. But step 3, do not forget step 3. Step 3, use the protractor. We line it up here. Use the protractor to make sure that last angle is 90 degrees. Because if it isn't, you didn't do it correctly. So once again, here's your study tip. After drawing the first 2 angles, make sure you check the remaining angle. Now, what do we have? Well, we have a right angle, and all 3 angles are different sizes, so that means it's scalene. So we have a right scalene triangle. In example 3, we're going to construct a triangle using its side lengths. So we want to draw a triangle with a 3 centimeter side and a 4 centimeter side that meet at a 20-degree angle. Then we're going to classify it. So step 1. Step 1 is always start with the angle. So in this case, we're going to start with the 20-degree angle. So we use our protractor, we make a 20-degree angle. Now make sure that your rays go far enough that you're not going to have to continue it on later. So make sure your rays, when you draw your angle, so we have our line here, you line it up with a vertex, and bam, you make a mark here, and you draw a ray through it. From there, you're going to use a ruler and measure each side. So we need a 3 centimeter and a 4 centimeter side. So step 2 is using a ruler to mark 3 centimeters on one ray and 4 centimeters on the other. So as you can see here, we have 2 points that represent where those 3 centimeters and 4 centimeters are. Step 3, we're going to connect those points to draw the third side. We're going to connect those points to draw the third side. So we label, always label, 4 centimeters and 3 centimeters. And then we know that this angle would be obtuse, and all 3 sides are different sizes, and you can measure it to make sure. But this would be an obtuse scalene triangle. Your vocab word for this section would be congruent sides.